In the wrong 10 seconds, Charlie's getting worried about how he chased the dog away on Wednesday and is trying to compensate. We've seen no signs of the video Phoebe caught him in, but here's Lydia, Charlie's grown-up daughter, on Thursday. That first night, Lydia didn't sleep much. Her cat's eyes gleamed from his perch further down the bed. Beyond Slim Shady's watchful gaze, the silhouettes of things Lydia couldn't bear to part with cluttered her apartment. Odd furniture from the pub, including her childhood chair from the hearth of the transatlantic. She'd piled it high with crime thrillers and doodles of fantastical creatures, coursework from training sessions on pressure sore alleviation, and a shirt Paul left behind on one of his hurried, hallowed visits. She wondered if Paul was restless too. By 4:30 in the morning, when the rain wearied somewhat and dawn highlighted the greyness of the day, Lydia picked up her phone and opened Facebook. "I'm going in," she warned Slim Shady of the mission behind enemy lines. He blinked lazily, unimpressed by the danger. Scrolling past the combination of inspirational sayings and frenzied political memes her American relatives posted, Lydia found the more local posts from last night. "Please share. Our whippet puppy was stolen from Fairfords this afternoon. My daughter is beside herself. Help bring Nikki home. She wears a collar but was due to be chipped next week. If we work together, we can find the POS who did this and get our baby back." This had wormed its way to Lydia's newsfeed, courtesy of a former co-worker, 2 of her secondary school classmates, and the nurse who'd be on duty at Robbins Hill today. "The other side is making dramatic inroads," Lydia muttered. Slim Shady licked his front paw smooth. A photo accompanied the post, featuring Deb Harrow more prominently than the lost pup. Lydia scrutinized Paul's wife. She stood on one of the hilltops surrounding the city, well tanned, blonde hair back apart from select tendrils flirting with the breeze. Wiry and vivacious, she wore extra short shorts and a ribbed tank top. The dog skulked in her shade, its face turned away. Lydia swore under her breath. She threw some clothes on and went for a jog. It was nearly 6 o'clock, still drizzling. "Just remember," Lydia told herself as her trainers pounded the pavement, "that picture shows the reasons Paul fell in love with her, because she's adventurous and, yes, pretty, but also why he's not happy there anymore. She's completely full of herself." Blink-182 and then Eminem on her earbuds shut out the first commuter buses sloshing drearily by, and lorries barging from the city, their deliveries finished before everyone else woke up. The Fairfords lorry groaned past. Lydia jogged toward the cut-price supermarket. She lived upstairs in a brick terrace stretching down a potholed hill into one of the city's ring roads. Her upper-class maternal grandmother had commented on it, wrinkling her nose. "Heavens, it's like something up north." Lydia remembered Charlie's gleeful reply. "Wonderful, isn't it? Practically out of a Hovis bread commercial celebrating the hard-working, home-loving populace." Lydia circled the city centre clockwise. On her left, the rows of terraces built to house textile workers ended abruptly where the old mill had been replaced by a labyrinth of pricey limestone-clad family homes. Paul lived on that development. Lydia made herself run by without looking. Across the ring road, a street marked by a defunct church reached into the city centre by way of Fairfords and Wetherspoons. Lydia slowed, looking around, while Eminem cursed and sweat mingled with the rain trickling down her jacket. If only she could catch sight of that dog still wandering around here. How surreal would it be to return the puppy and receive the Harrow woman's thanks? Must run faster. 28 years old, and she still concocted fantasies as silly as her childhood ones. Judging from Paul's anecdotes, his wife and daughter had limited capacity for gratitude. And the peculiar wrong Charlie had committed against the Harrows yesterday, Lydia had been doing worse for 2 years. Movement down a side road to a rundown 70s council estate attracted her eye. A thin, hooded figure paced, then halted, raising a phone as if to take a picture, and hurried off. The hood slipped, revealing a girl with orange hair flaming under the drizzle. The girl's twitchy, self-conscious movements jolted Lydia painfully back to her own teen years. What was worth photographing? Lydia jogged down the street and saw oily puddles, broken fence posts, and cars with enlarged exhaust pipes. The patch in front of one home showcased the stripped frame of a baby's car seat and a faded pumpkin-shaped trick-or-treating bucket full of cigarette butts. Lydia looped around to her flat via an outer ring road, passing sedate, square detached homes with the hills at their back. "Not spectacularly inspiring," she reported to Slim Shady, "apart from the music you're named for, obviously." After showering, she re-engaged Facebook. Now shares of the daughter's post littered the newsfeed. In this photo, the dog again didn't feature prominently, as Shiana was the main attraction. And she was very pretty. How much better might Lydia's life have been if she'd looked like that in year 10, rather than tall with a compensating slouch, brown hair limp, T-zone spotty. Instead, she would have shrugged off her vicious boyfriend's degradations, faced her studies boldly, and made some kind of exotic career, maybe backpacking around the world illustrating tour guides for kids. But what had her dad said about this girl? That her looks meant nothing. Lydia detected a sharp glint in Shiana's blue eyes, unlike the mellow, half-pleading blue of Paul's, and her smile exerted a cold grip over the pretty face. The dog panted hopefully in the picture's lower right corner, out of focus. "Give me back my baby," the girl had written. "If you scroll past without sharing, you're as horrible as whoever took my Nikki away." Whatever. Lydia put down her phone and got to work in the kitchen. How could people fall for this emotional blackmail? As lunchtime approached, she positioned a fragile silver band on her left ring finger, transforming herself into an alternate Mrs. Harrow. She packed a hamper, or rather an extra durable carrier bag, and drove through the city to St. Peter's College to meet Paul for his break. They sheltered between mock Doric pillars on the upper steps of an Edwardian hall on campus. She'd brought a thermos of chili and maize meal muffins to share. "This hits the spot," Paul praised. "Better than the leftover beetroot salad I was supposed to eat." "Score one for me," Lydia kept track in the unending struggle. "Any news yet?" "None." Paul gazed at the soggy green stretching from the bottom steps. A graying strand of his black hair slipped over his forehead. The lines around his eyes underscored their thoughtfulness. "Your dad didn't know anything about it." "He wasn't on the rota yesterday." She wasn't lying to him. Charlie had only gone in to cover another shift. "I'm sorry, it must be upsetting." "Well," he gave a little shrug. "Somewhat. But there's also a mania, a relish about it." He bit his muffin, brushed crumbs from his pleated trousers. "I mean, they must be genuinely worried about Nikki. But it seems the meager taste of online celebrity takes the edge off the loss." "Sure. What can't the internet fix?" Lydia passed him the thermos. "It sees all and gives all." He smiled at her and took his turn with the chili. A pigeon landed 3 steps down, brandishing its head at them like a hip-hop star. Paul concluded, "I have no doubt we'll find Nikki, but I almost hope they don't get their hands on the warped soul who took her." Lydia gulped, accidentally inhaling some muffin. Paul patted her back as she coughed. "Are you okay?" "Fine, just crumbs." "No, apart from that, you seem subdued." "It's nothing." Lydia watched a group of the college's special needs students cross the green, jostling each other and laughing. She turned back to Paul, who continued to study her, expecting further openness. "My dad, he seems to have got himself into trouble." Paul frowned. "But he's not the type to invite trouble, right?" "Definitely, he's a saint." "Especially compared to mine, but that doesn't take much." Paul brushed his hand over hers, lingering on the pretend wedding ring that allowed them to spend time together in view of his strict Catholic employers. "My dad's never had to fight in a war," Lydia pointed out. "But with your mum's illness, yes." Lydia heard a support worker call to the group as she struggled with a student's wheelchair as bulky as Harriet's. One of the other young people ran up to hold an umbrella for her. "Maybe it's become too much and forced him to do this one stupid thing," she said. "What sort of thing?" Lydia raised her knees, tucked her legs in closer as the rain drummed on the granite steps further down. "A tiny instant of a thing, but quite stupid. I can't shake the feeling everything's going to fall apart." Paul lifted each of her fingers singly, caressingly, from the step where they sat and onto his grip. "Like a little fireside chair moment." Outgrowing that chair had devastated Lydia as a child. She lightened her tone as best she could, saying with mock gravity, "I fear it could be nearly as sweeping and traumatic." Goodness. But you know, even after you didn't fit in that chair anymore, even after you were doomed to spend evenings alone in your room, he moved aside Lydia's bag of food, painting your nails burgundy and listening to Eminem. He shifted closer to fill the space he'd made between them. Instead of being with your mum and dad and the jolly pub patrons round the fire downstairs, it turned out all right, didn't it? You still have a close relationship with your family. This will turn out okay too. True. Plus, I've got you now. She couldn't bar the timorous quaver from her voice. Yes, you have. He drew her head to his shoulder. Better than the appalling boyfriend I found back in those days. You won't completely slander me if we break up, right? Lydia still had nightmares that she was back in year 11 with all her classmates thinking she had some awfully sexually transmitted disease. His lips brushed her temple. Never. None of the above, my angel. I'd be lost without you. Angels don't have affairs with married men, she murmured, and felt him stiffen at the rare admission. He said, "There's a lot more to you, to us, than that." The rain petered off again. She could tell him. My dad's unraveling. If you could help soften the rhetoric in any way. But no, that would heap pressure on Paul's fragile position. She'd already extracted her daily assurance quota from him. The pigeon returned, doing its hip-hop moves on the pavement edging the green, until it was chased away by two hulking crows. Lydia clutched Paul's hand. "Tell me more about what Shiana's like. How does she treat other people, that sort of thing?" "Ah," he exhaled. "Good question. I don't know. She's 14, practically a GCSE student. I don't really witness her, in her natural habitat." Fair enough. Lydia reached around to pack the thermos into her bag. Or maybe I just don't want to know. Paul glanced at his watch. "You're right, I'd better get back to the workshop." Standing and stretching, Lydia kept her tone casual. "What do you mean you don't want to know?" "You remember I told you she got in trouble at school for saying unkind things? That's actually happened a few times, and Shiana just says she didn't start it. According to her, other kids might bully these poor souls, but she's trying to improve their lives, coaching them to have better hairstyles, listen to cooler music, not annoy other people by putting their hands up so much in lessons, lose weight. Like you improve people, Mum, she says, all wide-eyed and innocent. That's a challenge to deal with. A germ of vindication sprouted for Lydia's father. What on earth had the girl decided Charlie needed to improve? They dismounted the steps. A tutor greeted them as he shepherded more students along. At St. Peter's College, Lydia was known as Mrs. Harrow. Paul's actual wife would no sooner set foot here than she would at the nursing home. The territory defaulted to Lydia. A group already waited outside the Arts and Design Technology Center, where Paul taught. They sheltered under the modernist building's jagged overhang created with polished pine planks, bound by stainless steel cables. Away from the group, a girl stood, jittering one foot to the other, clutching her flat stomach, her face so pale it practically glowed. Well, parenting's not meant to be easy, I suppose. Paul squeezed Lydia's waist and leaned in for a quick kiss. I just wish... A sentence Lydia knew he couldn't complete. She distracted him, nodding toward the lone figure outside the workshop. That girl. Who is she? The girl stared back at her now, a shocked look on her face, and then she turned and ran, her hoodie bouncing back to reveal her blazing ginger hair. I saw her this morning. Paul brushed back his rogue strand of hair and looked around. Which girl? Lydia half jogged forward, tempted to follow. She ran off when she saw us. He tensed. His eyes widened, crowding the wrinkles. When she saw us? Do you think she knows? No, it's just strange. I saw her across town earlier. Don't worry. Message me tonight? Sure. He looked preoccupied. Lydia headed across the green toward the car park, turning around to watch Paul as he greeted each of his students. She received a quick message that night while she was at the pub with her co-workers. Local papers interviewing Shiana and Deb tomorrow, so we're at the mall buying new outfits for both. I've snuck into Waterstone since my opinion isn't required. Did you know there's a new Michael Chabon novel out? Lydia, you're being antisocial, Matt accused, leaning over the table. Sorry, she put her phone away. Was it your boyfriend? Anna teased. What's he doing? Why doesn't he come meet us? He's in a bookshop. Lydia sipped her cider. And he's shy. I used to think Beth was shy. Matt indicated his sister, younger by 2 years. She stood beaming at the bar, surrounded by a group of men wearing t-shirts that said, Joe's Stag Do. One of them offered his bicep. She squeezed it and giggled. Matt groaned. I'm so proud. Anna admonished him. You ought to be. Your sister's an independent woman and there's nothing you can do about it. True, my big brother tried to warn me off my ex-boyfriend. I didn't listen. Lydia's brother Alfie had seemed immune to peer pressure, perhaps because as the only openly gay student at their school, he already knew he was different. Industrious as Charlie, but with fewer hidden anxieties, Alfie had been happy to outgrow his fireside chair. Matt twirled an empty beer bottle on the table. Clearly Beth's communication skills are good, even though she neglected our English lessons back in Poland. She does fine at work, observed Lydia. How are your shifts today, anyway? All right, Anna replied. We got a couple showers done. Hopefully they'll stay nice and clean for Sunday's afternoon tea party. Lydia grimaced. I forgot about that. It's going to be manic. Please tell me you're all working with me this weekend. We'll be there, Matt nodded. Constance is on a different unit. I found some bruises today, by the way. Lottie's arms, even Ronald's. From Constance? I've got claw marks from showering Eddie. Anna traced the welts on her arm. You showered Mr. Harrow. I'm impressed. Lydia drained her glass. And Alice missed you, Anna continued. Oh, I'm not sure about that. We get on well when I'm there, but she... It's true. Matt leaned forward. The nurse came in with her meds while we were washing Alice, and Alice shooed her off. Bring the other blue one, she said. Lydia suppressed a smile. Alice did call her my blue lady for the uniform. Hi-hoo! Beth rejoined them, carrying a bottle of white wine and a bottle of red. I make stags buy us round. Good? Matt frowned. Great. Are we meant to drink wine from pint glasses or... No! Beth must have kicked him under the table as he swore quietly and reached down to rub his shin. One of the t-shirted men brought 4 wine glasses over. Welcome to England. Have lots of fun, and if you want to have fun with me... With a cheeky grin, he passed Beth a slip of paper with his phone number on before departing. See? She laughed. I tell them we just visit like tourists. Everything under control. Good thinking. Who wants to admit being an immigrant these days? Matt scowled at his glass, then took a tentative sip. This isn't awful. Lydia raised her glass. To Beth's 7 new boyfriends. 6, corrected Matt, surveying the group skeptically. I assume one of them is getting married shortly. Let's not be fussy. Anna settled back in her high seat, glass in the air, long legs still reaching the floor. Could this earn them approval from the older brother? Most civilized. He studied the bottle label. This puts the stags ahead of your chap, Lydia. What has he ever contributed to our group of fabulousness? His father's contributed quite a few scratches and other blows, thought Lydia. Paul had apologized ever since Eddie's arrival one winter night 2.5 years ago, when Lydia was on duty to meet them. His dad had been difficult to get along with before dementia set in. By some accounts, he'd been a tricky customer even before his imprisonment by the Japanese. And from their first meeting, Lydia assured Paul she understood that her occupational inconveniences didn't compare to the struggles her patients faced. Robins Hill residence came first. He had a similar perspective working with his sometimes troubled students. Deb, on her constant mission to improve people, couldn't appreciate that. Now, Lydia smiled and raised her glass. He makes me happy, and therefore I'm more fun to hang out with. Believe me, I'd be a miserable cow without him. So romantic, Beth sighed. You're a cat lady and a hoarder even with him, Anna corrected. We've seen your place. Get him to move in with you before you're buried in clutter. That's the end of chapter 5.